If you listen to me long enough, you'll hear me mention your pendulum. Understanding one's pendulum leads to maturity and effective leadership. Are you confused yet? Years ago, I developed what I like to call the pendulum philosophy. Now, the best way to picture a pendulum is to think about one of those really big, old-timey clocks. It's the one that's got the second hand that moves back and forth. That's a pendulum. Or said another way, a pendulum swings between two opposing views or sides. Now, we all have personal pendulums, meaning that when you have a strength or a skill or a decision, we will lean one way or the other. So for example, take two opposing strengths, planning and spontaneity. If you're a really good planner, you're typically not very spontaneous and vice versa. So if we think about our pendulum, planning's on one side, spontaneity's on the other side. If we start in the middle, the more we move this way, the more of a planner we are. And the more we move this way, the more spontaneous we are. This can be applied to almost an unlimited number of areas. Think about conflict. Some people lean towards running towards conflict, others towards running away. Think about self-perception. Some of us lean towards being overly critical of ourselves. Others of us lean toward being overly confident or complimentary of ourselves. Or communication. Some of us lean towards being lots and lots and lots of talking. Others lean towards not talking as much. Now I know at this point you're going, Shawn, I don't see the importance in it. This seems like common sense. And you're right, it is. But the simplest lessons are typically the most valuable. Here's why the pendulum is so powerful. It's about self-awareness. In a previous session, I mentioned how self-awareness is one of the top lessons that have shaped my leadership over the last 20 years. The reason is that leaders who are self-aware are typically more mature and more effective in their leadership. So let's look at the pendulum in action and see its power. Let's go back to our example of planning and spontaneity. Both of these are strengths. If you're a planner, then you're typically very organized and you're good at accomplishing tasks. You have a plan, you plan your work, and you work that plan. Now, people who are spontaneous, they also have strengths. They're really good at creating memories. They do a great job of being the life of the party and cultivating relationships. But you see, every strength has an inherent curse or weakness attached to it. And the further you move to the extreme on the pendulum, the more significant that weakness is. Let's go back to our example of planning and spontaneity. If you take planning to the extreme, you become ineffective at relationships. You become too rigid, too busy. You can't change or maneuver very quickly. People get frustrated with you because you're not flexible at all, and they feel like they have to schedule time with you always. Now, on the other side, when it comes to people who are spontaneous, when you take that to the extreme, you can be ineffective at tasks or projects. You get really excited and you start something, but you don't complete it. Your attention gets diverted somewhere else. People around you can be frustrated because you can be not dependable or you can be flaky. The pendulum allows us to understand what that weakness is. Now, I'm not saying we should become more well-rounded, okay? But what I am saying is we need to know what our bent is so that we can compensate for it. So take, for example, me. I am a natural planner for all those who know me. So what I need to do is I need to recognize that because I'm a natural planner, when a situation comes up, I'm going to always lean to thinking we need to plan this out. We need to be more prepared. But if I know what my bent is, I can take a step back. I can look at the situation and go, what is best in this situation? And there have been many times in my life where I've said, you know what, I lean towards planning, but in this case, the most effective solution is being more spontaneous. It helps us out to understand what that bent is so that we can make the best decisions possible. So here's today's game plan. Now, the pendulum can be used in an unlimited number of areas. But as I think about leadership, there are 6 areas where understanding your bent will be extremely important. So as I list out these 6, I want you to think about what your bent is. When it comes to yourself, do you lean towards being overly critical, or do you lean to be maybe unaware? When it comes to people, do you lean towards being more judgmental, or do you lean towards being more compassionate? When it comes to projects, do you lean towards being more of a planner or more spontaneous? How about conflict? Do you initiate it and you're more confrontational, or do you run away from it and you're more of a peacemaker? What about communication? Do you use lots of words when you talk, or do you use maybe too few words at times? What about confidence? Are you very confident and maybe that leans towards pride and arrogance? Or maybe you lean the other way in insecurity and self-doubt get the best of you. When you understand your bent on that pendulum, you can make better decisions, but more importantly, you can be more known for your strengths and not that weakness or curse that is attached to it. Well, let me leave you with our tweetable lesson. Self-awareness leads to maturity. Maturity leads to effectiveness. Effectiveness leads to significance.